Okay, so thank you. So we're Bridging Mortars, and today is an episode two. We're very glad to be having Megan Barstow, and thank you so much. And we're very looking forward for this opportunity. She is a president and representative director of Edelman Japan and senior advisor for the APAC Employee Experience. And to introduce from my end, she is a leader in global communications that shaped the corporate reputation, employee experience strategies across major sectors, including finance, consumer goods, and others. And beginning her Edelman career in Tokyo in 2006, she later spent a decade in Washington, D.C., managing global client relationship before returning to lead Edelman Japan. Prior to Edelman, Megan worked at Ad-Comm Group on brands including Ralph Lauren, Moët Chandon, and also was an editor at Time Life Japan. She's passionate about helping complex and decentralized organizations, evolving to the best values, driving integrated communications, empowering diverse teams. So, welcome, Megan, and thank you for coming us to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I realize my introduction is a bit of a handful. So thank you for introducing me so succinctly or capably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
So,
lot.
thank you very much. So let's dive into that, some of the questions. First of all, I think you have a great and also unique in terms of the perspectives, how you went through from the point and the leading Japan from the career perspectives. Can you tell us about your role and how the Japanese business landscape has evolved from your perspectives?
Hmm. That's a long story, so I don't know how long we have together, but I like to say that I have a long and strong love affair with Japan. I've actually been coming back and forth for 33 years. I first came in 1992 as a student at Kansai Gaidai. So I've had four lives here, not quite nine like a cat, but still four lives where I started as a student, exchange student for 1 year in Osaka. Then I was on the JET program in rural Kagoshima for 3 years. Then I was a mid-level employee in Tokyo. And then I've returned in the role of president. And so in those 33 years, and as my own role has evolved, I've had a chance to also see how much Japan has changed in that time, right? Of course, every nation in the world is changing a lot, but sometimes people say, change doesn't happen in Japan and it stays, it's really hard to drive that change. But I would argue that that's not the case at all. So first and foremost, I've seen um, a big internationalization of Japan, obviously, in that timeline. At the same time, that means that Japanese businesses have also really had to look outside of Japan for revenue and for business, which in our business is great because that means that these Japanese companies who have a tremendous value, have tremendous stories to tell, are looking for more support. And how do they communicate that? How do they engage with people outside of Japan? And so I think that's really exciting for Japanese companies and for consumers throughout the world because Japanese companies have so much to offer. I see that the employee base has become much more international. Still more work to do, right? So you see that more foreigners are coming into Japan and are in senior leadership positions or mid-level positions. But I think we're going to see much more in the coming decade, right? To sustain business here. Yeah, I think those are some of my, top line
Mm,
observations about how Japan has evolved and some of the key opportunities.
that's very inspiring because I think you definitely touched an important point about the how we can actually tell the story about our value across the world. I think there's tremendous opportunity to explain, and I'm sure that throughout your leadership has really been that's probably some of the value that I also feel that would like to contribute myself as well. Thank you for that.
Yeah, one
Great.
thing I wanted to add to that was that Japanese brands have such a strong asset. We at Edelman do the trust barometer research every year where we survey trust in major institutions, so business, media, government, and NGOs. And in that, we assess the trust in where companies are headquartered. And Japanese headquartered companies are very highly trusted outside of Japan. And I think that's a tremendous asset in the world today where trust is plummeting in most institutions. And so that's something that should not be taken lightly by Japanese companies. And I think sometimes their slower, more methodical approach, while maybe they're not changing fast, they're very thoughtful and they have their midterm plan and their long-term plan. And that allows them to be more predictable and also to stick with their strategies, which again, in today's tumultuous world, I think is really valuable for employees, but also for investors and others.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
right, right.
It's the trust is really the key, and I think it's something that's I also really love your report. Actually,
Oh,
thank you.
good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you read it.
Yes.
But that's an interesting point you were making, Megan, about internationalization, because there is another side of the coin also that people say that internationalization in Japan, it's very limited on surface and it is not fundamentally changing, right? And sometimes, like you talked about trust, which is, I can understand your 3 decades of experiences talking about the trust, how important it is in Japan, and hence we can see these companies, so many 100-year-old companies, and they're still doing great, right? How do you like the question is like, because your rich experience leading Edelman Japan and managing global client relationships, how have you approached growing and positioning the business in Japan? Because it's a different way of doing, like, the few of the things you've already touched upon, right? Are there any particular strategies around localization that you have found especially very effective to work in Japan?
That is the $1 million question, as they say, Newton. I think it's something that's honestly a work in progress. It's a huge, I mean, the work that you do, Bridging Borders, is really at the center of that
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Edelman is a global communications agency, but our headquarters is in the US. And so
yeah,
our work practices and the way we do business and the overall mindset is very American, right? And so
yeah.
then when you're working, even though we're in Japan and we have Japanese staff, we're 95% Japanese staff, but still we're very, I would say, American culture infused company. And then when you're working with a very Japanese company, of course, it's very infused with the Japanese ways of working and business customs. And so there are huge cultural challenges that need to be
Mm,
overcome and working together. And I think it's both sides have like continual culture shock, to be honest.
yes,
And
yes.
it's I think what brings us together is the desire and need to do something different to really effectively reach people in a new way, right? So communications has really changed in 30 years, something else that's dramatically evolved, right? Edelman started 74 years ago as a PR agency, which was really focusing on um, earned media, getting stories in the news, right? In
Mm,
newspapers. But
mm,
now it encompasses digital and events and other ways of, the full comprehensive suite of channels to reach people. But what we do to try to make that work, and it is again a work in progress, is our people have to be bicultural, bilingual, and be able to act as that bridge between our teams outside of Japan and to our clients is one. The other is we really need to train our global teams on Japanese business practices, in particular decision-making processes, the pace of business. and also the significant amount of time needed in relationship building. I think that's something that we spend a lot of time doing. The other thing that I've been learning is really the need to have templates of the work that are this is the set way that things are done each time, because our Japanese customers really look for the set way that it's done, which I think goes back to Japanese culture that, when you do something, it's a set of six processes, whereas Americans or American business, and especially because we have a lot of creative types in our organization, it's like, well, we have the fundamental approach, but we like to tweak it every time. So that's an area that we explore. I think that's important to get right. So there's a lot of those nuances both in the
Yeah.
broader team, but also I think we need to get really into the details of working with Japanese companies because Japanese buyers are very detail oriented. And that's
Yeah.
another really big culture shock. Americans are big and the vision and where we want to go.
Mm.
And Japanese companies want that. They want to be inspired, but then they want to know, how are you going to do it? Are you going to be able to do it perfectly? Have you
Yeah.
thought through every single step? And so that's another area that we have to really change our mindset when we're working with our Japanese clients.
I think you've covered a lot of great points, like the details piece, which is Japanese culture, especially in business, is very microscopic sometimes, and hence it takes, like you said, a lot of lead time is pretty long, right? Because of
Yes.
that, and it's always a tussle between a headquarters who are thinking of closing it in next quarter. And
Yes.
then we talk about, like you were saying, the trust is very important, which takes time to build that relationship, right?
Agreed.
Just one more question of the topic which you said. That Japan has a lot of good asset in terms of brands and trustworthy companies and conglomerate, right? But I've seen often that Japanese companies, because they don't exaggerate or they don't like to talk about themselves, they struggle a lot to convey the right essence and the value proposition what they have. How you guys help the consumers to go out? Because I think that's your bread and butter, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that is, the biggest opportunity for Japanese companies is they have so many great stories to tell, and I think that they could tell them much better in a more compelling way. And some companies are doing it, right? And I
Mm,
see, for example, many more Japanese CEOs getting active on LinkedIn and promoting what they're doing. I see many of them attending Davos, WEF, World Economic Forum, and
yeah,
telling their
yeah,
stories. So it is changing, and some of the Japanese companies do a really good job on their investor relations and sustainability reports, but there is still, I think, the risk averse mindset, which in some ways is good. You're not going to get as much greenwashing or whatever washing of
mm,
information. But sometimes I think, the fortune favors the bold, and that's where Japanese companies miss out sometimes, especially when it comes
yeah,
to communications, right?
yeah,
There is
yeah,
always a risk in communicating, and you're not going to make all of your stakeholders happy all the time, right? So I always counsel clients to really think about what is their core purpose and what are their core values, and they need to communicate in line with that, right? And so as long as they communicate in line with those core values and purpose, and they're able to defend what they're saying and why they're saying it and what they're doing because it's in line with those values and that purpose, I think that's a safer space to be in, right? Because they're being authentic to who they are as a company, and they're speaking to their key stakeholders, employees or the consumers or the clients that know them or appreciate those values and purpose.
that's such a important thing what you said, core purpose and the value, right? If you stick to that, it automatically becomes very authentic.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of the changes over the years of the companies globalizing, and I think you definitely touch upon the very important area of the core values, how the companies will share those authentically. Uh, and I think throughout the learnings of the experience that the leaders in for headquarters in Japan or from the for the global companies perspective, what do you see from your view of changes? What do you think they have learned over the years? Do you see like changes happening?
In terms of the executive leadership teams, are you
Yes,
saying? Yeah,
yes, yes.
definitely. I'm really inspired by this new, I shouldn't say the word batch, right? That's odd. But this new group of emerging leaders that
Mhm.
I see taking on the helm of the Keizai Doyukai, stepping up into leadership positions in companies. They are bolder. Many of them are very international in mindset. And they're making some key moves. And for me, selfishly, or I guess it benefits Edelman, they're understanding the value of communications much more and they're investing in it more, right? So they're really
Mm.
understanding the risk for companies
Yep.
operating and understanding how communications is a strategic driver, a priority, and investing more in that function and also incorporating that into, the council that they listen to or what they bring to the board. I also see, Japanese companies are making progress on women on boards. Not as much diversity on their executive leadership teams as, maybe is the goal, but I do see them becoming increasingly diverse. So I'm pretty excited about this next generation of senior leaders. I think I was in a meeting recently with what would be considered a very traditional industry and organization, and the leaders were just thrilling. They
Yeah,
were
yeah.
very exciting and had really, bold ideas and an innovative view of the world. And I came away from it just like so excited about what that meant for the organization and the industry. So I hope to have more and more of those kinds of engagements, both with Japanese leaders, but also foreign leaders here in Japan.
Well, that's very exciting, and I think it is going to be critical for Japan. I think with the we're in this island, and also trying to also share the values
Mm.
effectively, and that kind of leadership, and also the excitement. Hearing from your story, I think it's a great thing to learn, and so thank you for sharing that. Great.
I was wondering too. I mean, I was just reflecting on how the perception of Japanese business became, from the 80s, 90s, maybe 90s onward, as more staid or, the risk averse. But,
Mhm.
Japan has a long history of very entrepreneurial companies that broke all the molds and all the expectations. And I do think there is a very big difference between the founder type personality and
Mhm.
the salaryman shacho, and that's
Yeah.
by design, right? It's what they're allowed to do and what they're expected to do. And so I think
Yeah.
it is in the DNA and also in the mindset, but I see increasingly more salaryman shachos are also
Mhm.
doing bolder things because the board is pushing them to do that and expecting them to do that, and investors are expecting that. So it's quite exciting um, for me, and I think for others watching this space.
Amazing.
I think,
Thank you
yeah,
for sharing. Yeah.
I think that's the reason because that there are so many amazing stories and they never crossed this island, and that was the motive of we starting this bridging borders, that we felt basically talking to the leaders globally that they're missing out. The perception what they have about Japan is little old and stale, like you said, and it's improving. And at the ground level, we are seeing the changes are happening. Like you said, I agree. It's slow. It could be much more faster, but the excitement is there, like you said. I think that's what is important, right? Making
There's also like very surprising or different uh, policies in Japan that I think uh, would be interesting to people outside of Japan. So I was talking to a colleague about the fukugyo policy that the
Yes.
Japanese
Ah,
government
yes.
Yeah.
is pushing, right?
Yep.
And so typically fukugyo is where, the Japanese government is encouraging people to take a second job or role in addition to their quote day job, right? And that is part career development, allowing them to pursue passions and get additional experience, but also because there's a labor shortage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yep.
understand that that's really a strong hiring area for startups in particular, for example. So they
Yeah.
are looking for top talent from some of the biggest Japanese companies, and then they're able to work with startups. And from the, American point of view, that would be just unthinkable, right? That
Yeah.
the government is recommending people have a second job in addition to their first job because of the idea of loyalty, and a job takes up all of your time. So it's really interesting. I'm not sure how it's all
Mm,
going to pan out, but I think
Yeah.
there's always interesting policies in Japan and programs that should be considered and perhaps adopted or at least reviewed by other countries. I'm not saying that Fukugyo is the right one. I think it's very
Yeah.
interesting. It's just interesting,
mm,
right?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. When I heard about that, it also really brought up some excitement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a totally different story when the government is allowing that. I think it will definitely change the mindset of
Mm-hmm.
the salary people, uh,
Yes.
bringing a new ways of working. So I really like that, and thank you for sharing your view. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just for our audience, fukugyo is a side gig, or
Yep.
you can, that's the common word people use. That's what coming that the Japanese government is supporting that to the employees, which is totally like Megan, you mentioned, it's totally opposite of what we know about Japan. That it's stick to one company for whole life and Nenko Jorotsu and all those systems. But here the government is trying to change, which is a great positive sign, right?
I agree.
Yeah. Another, Megan, given your deep understanding of the Japanese market and working with diverse teams, what advice would you give to the companies or the leaders who are thinking about entering or expanding their presence in Japan today? Like especially the, gaishike, the foreign companies, and even for the professionals, who are aiming to thrive in foreign companies based here. What are the key tips would you share?
Oh my gosh. I I know a lot about Japan? I ask myself that all the time. I am still constantly learning, and honestly, I think it's such a deep and profound culture and country that you are never an expert in Japan. At least that's my
Yes.
feeling. I think even Japanese people are not
Yeah.
experts all
Yes.
the time, but especially
Exactly.
as, right? Um, but no, honestly, I have learned so much in each of my lives in Japan, and I really wish someone had been with me and counseled me as I took on this role of president, and really given me a primer, a grounding in the perception and the reality, and tips and tricks on managing a company in Japan. And I've been writing a diary, so I'm going to be publishing a book afterward on the
Oh,
whole
that's great.
experience, but
That's great.
we'll see. I think for anyone looking to enter the market, I think it's a slow and patient uh, journey. Uh, my predecessor told me when I took on this role, he said, Japan is all about patience, persistence, and politeness, the three P's. And I think about that all the time. So change or progress does not happen quickly here, typically, right? So you need to invest with the long haul, or the idea of the longer term, and the real commitment to the market. So that would be my first and foremost. And then I think you need to surround yourself by real experts who can advise you, finance, HR, IT, on how to navigate here, because it's quite different. lawyers on the whole regulatory environment. It's really, really complex and nuanced. And so I think you really need to consult with experts before you dive in and understand the environment. Every country's like that. I'm sure if you're going to go to India or Vietnam or anywhere, it's the same. But I think there's a lot of more complicated steps in Japan that can make it more time consuming.
You have actually raised a very good point. Like I often see companies who are coming with a half-hearted approach for Japan, and my advice always to them is only come to Japan if you're committed for a long term. Otherwise, you don't
Yes,
waste your time.
Mm.
And you said echoing with me a lot what you said about that also.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Japan is not a place for short-termers.
Yes. Yeah. Eh, Megan, any advice to the professionals like us, like the people who have been working here or trying to come to Japan? Because people
Hmm.
have some perception about weekend nowadays, great place to shop. But if there are professionals who wants to do good career wise in Japan, what would be your advice to them?
I mean, I feel Japan has so many amazing opportunities for those who want to give it a try. I was reading in the Japan Times the article about the voice artist that
Yes.
does the sound for the trains, the JR trains, and how that's
Mm,
become her career. And
mm,
I feel that it is the land of opportunity still, right? You reach out, you make a connection. I think that Tokyo is a very open environment. I think the both Japanese and foreign residents are very gracious with their time. If you reach out and ask for time or to have lunch or coffee, I think it's a city where people still do that right now after COVID. I guess during COVID it didn't happen
Yeah.
much, but I think it's very easy to meet people here and get connected with people. And I just find it a very LinkedIn community. I shouldn't use the word LinkedIn community, but I think it's you come here and you can really make something for yourself. It's just incredibly full of opportunities for those who are willing to invest their time.
Such a great advice, Megan. I think people missed out. They have this misperception about Japan being a fourth biggest economy, not no longer a second biggest economy, but fourth is itself. If you see it in GDP terms, it's pretty big, a decent number we are talking about.
It's big and decent, and there's not enough talent. And
Yeah.
so,
Mm.
therefore, there is huge opportunity and need for people that are talented and have services to offer. I think it's the sky's the limit when it comes to
Mm.
career opportunities here.
Yes, and especially with the recent, a lot of like inbound opportunities. I see a great changes happening, which is, I think it will bring to a next new level of how the society actually builds. So it's very exciting, and I really I think about your point, also at the same time, being patient and also have a long stand perspective. Also, having the curiosity to learn these things. I think that's a very important area. I totally agree, and thank you for that great insights. Yeah.
Thank you. I
I
feel
think
like,
that,
oh, I was going to say, I think,
yeah,
there's many challenges ahead for Japan. But there's also in challenges, there's opportunity. So we talk about
yeah,
the aging demographic in Japan.
Mhm.
That is going to be really interesting to see how Japan overcomes that or adapts. It will really be adapting. But within that, there's also so many opportunities. So there's new technologies that are coming out, there are
yeah.
new jobs that are created. There's opportunity for more foreigners to come in and support. So I always think that in the challenge is where also there's the opportunity, right? To your
Yeah.
point earlier, Nishioka.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. It's amazing.
It's such a great point. And what echoed with me is the three P's, what you have shared, Megan: the politeness, perseverance, and patience. I think that summarizes all the knowledge what you have talked about. I think for our audience, Just remember those three P's, and if you remember and stick to them, you'll be very successful in Japan. Thanks a lot, Megan, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And it was great learning from you today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you.